And it says, the book of the words of Tobit, the son of Tobael, the son of Anael, the son of Anduel, the son of Gabael, of the seed of Aziel, of the tribe of Naphtali. All right. So Tobit was of the tribe of Naphtali. Okay. So now let's go back to the book of Genesis real quick and let's understand something about this book that we're about to read about the man Tobit. All right, the Israelite brother Tobit. So in the book of Genesis, chapter 49, right, it says this about about the tribe of Naphtali. Okay, so this is what Jacob explained to his son Naphtali about what was going to happen with his descendants. And it says, hold on, Genesis 49. Let me grab my other Bible. And it says, this card is Dan, is Asher Naphtali. So in verse 21, Genesis 49 to 21, and it says, Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words. Right? So Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words. So let's check out what he means by a goodly, by goodly words. Okay. And with Tobit, that's what we're gonna find out. So the key here is that goodly words. Okay. So now the book of Tobit, as you read, it's history, right? And it also deals with, the encouragement from a father to his son, all right, and explaining to him how he is to keep, right on the right track. Okay. So now it says here in verse 2 in the book of Tobit, all right, chapter 1, where verse 2, who in the time of Enemenezer, king of Assyria, was led captive out of Thespes, which is at the right hand of that city, which is called properly Naphtali in Galilee above Asher. All right. So you can go back in the book of Joshua, right? And you can read the territories, you know what I'm saying, and the cities that basically were allotted to the tribe of Asher, the tribe of Naphtali, to get more of that understanding. All right. Also, you can read in the history from the book of Second Kings, chapter 15, right? And you can read chapters 17, right? That goes into the history of how the 10 tribes basically were being carried away captive. Okay, so remember, they weren't all carried away at the same time, but over a period of time, thousands of of 10 tribes were basically carried away into the land of Assyria. All right. So you see some during this time of the king, like say for instance, Pika or Menahem, those kings, right? Israelites were being taken away captive, all right, into the land of Assyria. Then you see that um, the final deportation of the 10 tribes came during the time of Hosea, when all of them were basically carried out of the north, all right, and transplanted into the region of Assyria, all right. 2 Kings chapter 17, and I believe verses 5 and 6 will explain exactly where they went, all right. It explains the king that they were under and, the regions in which they went: Gozan, Havilah, uh, and I believe Nineveh, all right. So those regions that they went to, so you guys can check those out for yourself. Okay, so Enemenezer is Shalmaneser that you read in the Bible. Okay, his name is Shalmaneser the fifth. Okay, Shalmaneser the fifth. When you read, like, say for instance, earlier in the book of Kings, right, like in chapter First Kings, you'll read that during that time that was like Shalmaneser the third. All right, that I believe that King Jehu and King Ahab. Those were that was the Assyrian king during their time. All right. So then, Okay, you could let me see. Yeah, you could read about that guy. I believe in First Kings chapter 12. All right. So now it says, who in the time of Enemenezer, king of Assyria, was led captive out of Thespi, which is at the right hand of that city, which is called properly Naphtali in Galilee above Asher. I, Tobit, have walked all the days of my life in the way of truth and justice. So he was a very righteous and upright brother. He says, and I did many alms deeds to my brethren and my nation who came with me to Nineveh, right? So it says he did many alms deeds to his brethren, right? To his nation, okay? That had came to him, you know what I'm saying, in Nineveh, which is in the land of Assyria. All right. It says, into the land of the Assyrians, verse 4, and when I was in my own country, in the land of Israel, being but young, all the tribe of Naphtali, my father, fell from the house of Jerusalem, who was chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, that all the tribes should sacrifice there where the temple of the habitation of the Most High was. All right. So we said it happened when he was really young, okay, that his father's house of the tribe of Naphtali, that everybody fell away, okay? They all fell away. All right, so we know that practically happened, you know what I'm saying? During the time of uh of Rehoboam and Jeroboam, okay? So remember, Rehoboam was basically he was the king of Judah, all right? And Jeroboam, he was the king of the 10 tribes of Israel. So the Most High caused that split and division. Why? Because of the sins of Solomon. All right. So so remember, Rehoboam had a chance to bring it all back together if he would have treated the 10 tribes kindly, but he said, no, I renege. I'm going to treat you like the devil. All right. So now you see that the 10 tribes basically stuck to themselves. They made Jeroboam their permanent king. All right, and they established what you would call the northern kingdom. So now it says, where the temple of the habitation of the Most High was consecrated and built for all ages. Now all the tribes which together revolted, and the house of my father Naphtali sacrificed unto the heifer Baal. Right. So remember, Jeroboam had basically devised a scheme to where none of the 10 tribes were to go. We're gonna go worship at the temple in Jerusalem, right, where the Most High resided. But he was like, here, worship these golden calves. All right. So he understood the weakness of the people was idolatry. So remember that heifer that they worshiped, those golden calves, they were called Baal. So verse 6, but I alone went often to Jerusalem at the feast, as it was ordained unto all the people of Israel by an everlasting decree, having the first fruits and the tenth of increase, with that which was first shorn. And them gave I at the altar to the priest, the children of Aaron. So you see now he's showing you that he did what? He said, even though his father's house fell away, he didn't. All right. He continued to go down and worship, you know what I mean, the Most High at Jerusalem. Okay. So he basically did exactly what was said in the book of Deuteronomy. All right. Um, I believe it's chapter 16 or chapter 22, one of them, where it talks about how he would basically liquidate the funds, right? If he was too far, he would liquidate his funds, and then he would go down to Jerusalem, buy whatever he needed to buy, then he would give it to the priest. Okay. So then verse 7, the first tenth part of all increase I gave to the sons of Aaron, just as it says in the law. All right. It says, who ministered at Jerusalem. Another tenth part I sold away and went and spent it every year at Jerusalem. There it is, which is also in the law. He says, and the third I gave unto them to whom it was meet, as Deborah my father's mother had commanded me, because I was left an orphan by my father. All right. So he basically was raised by his grandmother. Okay. And he basically gave, you know, whatever he had left. So Tobit, he was a very wealthy brother. He had an abundance. Then he basically gave, he gave to the priest. He gave at the temple. Then he gave the rest away to whoever he felt was, to whoever he felt was meat. All right. So it shows you that this man was very giving. Okay. He was very giving, man. He was about his people. He says, furthermore, when I was come to the age of a man, I married Anna of my own kindred, and of her I begat Tobias. So he begat a son. He married a wife of his own people, right? Of his own tribe. Her name was Anna, and he had a son by her named Tobias. And when we were carried away captive to Nineveh, all my brethren and those that were of my kindred did eat of the bread of the Gentiles, right? So that was prophesied, I believe, in the book of Ezekiel, all right, where Israel would basically eat the bread of the Gentiles, okay? So he says, but I kept myself from eating, all right? So he didn't partake of, of the bread of the Gentiles. He says, because I remember God with all my heart, and the Most High gave me grace and favor before Enemenezer or Shalmaneser, so that I was his purveyor. And I went into Media and left in trust with Gabriel, the brother of Gabrias at Rages, a city of Media, 10 talents of silver. So Media, that is a city in no, Midian is basically like the Medes, all right. So then that'd be like the Rages is a city within Midian, okay, which would be like the territory of the Medes. So then he says, now when Enemenezer was dead, Shenapsarib his son reigned in his stead, whose estate was troubled, that I could not go into Media. And it came to pass, and in the time of Enemenezer, I gave many alms to my brethren and gave my bread to the hungry. So even in the land of his captivity, right, he was still doing for his people. Okay.
You're doing this for people?
Shh. He says, and if King Sennacherib had slain any when he was come and fled from Judea, I buried them privately. For in his wrath he killed many, but the bodies were not found when they were sought for of the king. So basically, told when Sennacherib, right? Um, he was killing Israelites. All right, that was something that the Assyrians did. They were known as a barbarous people. All right, a barbarous people, and of course, they did very evil things. Okay, especially to those that were in captivity to them. So they killed. As Tobit is showing you right here, they killed many Israelites. They killed many of our people, and Tobit was burying them. All right, any of his people that he found slain, he buried them. Okay, because he was keeping that law about about the buried. Okay, how a body shouldn't be above ground for or I think past sundown. Hold on one second. Let me pull it up. I think it's in Genesis or Deuteronomy. So that's why you see our fathers had to have like burying places for their people. You know what I mean? Because they just couldn't leave the bodies out, in the middle of in the middle of the ground or anything like that. They had to be buried. Thank you. That's going to be on the recording. So hold on, I can't find it. I can't find it right yet. I'll find it. I'll get it in a second. So now it says, I'll continue reading. So it says, and when one of the Ninevites went and complained of me to the king, so you had this Ninevite, right? He went and complained to the king that, hey, I found that man that was sitting there burying your victims. So it says, and when one of the Ninevites went and complained of me to the king that I buried them and hid myself, hid myself, understanding that I was sought for to be put to death. I withdrew myself for fear. So he went into hiding. Then all my goods were forcibly taken away. Neither was there anything left me besides my wife Anna and my son Tobias. So they took away all his possessions. They took everything away from him. All right. It says, and there passed not 5 and 50 days, 55 days, before two of his sons killed him, and they fled into the mountains of Ararat. And Sharkodanus, his son, reigned in his stead, who appointed over his father's accounts and over all his affairs Archiorus, my brother, Anael's son. All right. So now let's continue reading. And Archiorus, entreating for me, I returned to Nineveh. Now Archiorus was cupbearer and keeper of the signet and steward and overseer of the accounts, and Sharkanonos, well, can't pronounce her name, appointed him next unto him, and he was my brother's son. All right, so his nephew. Okay, so you see that this is how Tobit was able to get all of his possessions back. All right, so the Most High had mercy on Tobit, right? And he basically his nephew was set up to be like you know cupbearer and all that stuff, man, to the new king. Okay, let me see if I can find this real quick, because it says that his sons killed Shenapsarib, or Shenapsarib's sons killed him. Let me see if I can find that. I believe it's in the book of in Isaiah, I think. Let me see. Hold on one second. That's Hezekiah. Yeah, here we go. Let's check this out. Chapter 37, Isaiah chapter 37, and I'm gonna start at verse 33. Hold on, let's see. So it says, therefore, thus saith the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, he shall not come into this city, nor shoot an arrow there, nor come before with shields, nor cast a bank against it. By the way that he came, by the same shall he return, and shall not come into this city, saith the Lord. For I will defend this city to save it for my own sake and for my servant David's sake. Then the angel of the Lord went forth and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. So 185,000, all right, were killed. And when they arose early in the morning, behold, there were all dead corpses. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and went and returned and dwelt at Nineveh. And it came to pass, as he was worshipping in the house of Nisroch, his god, that Andramelech and Sharizah, his son, smote him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Armenia, and Esarhaddon, his son, reigned in his stead. Look at that. So basically you see that the account that happened here, right, in the book of Isaiah chapter 37, right, 33 through 38, it happened during the time of Tobit. All right. So Tobit was alive and well. The 10 tribes, they were in the land of Assyria at this time. So all of what was happening to Tobit was going on at the same time that Judea was being oppressed by the Assyrians, right? 185,000 men, were basically were before Jerusalem, ready to devour it. Guess what? That's why it said that in here in verse 18 in the book of Tobit, chapter 2, he says, and if King should not, I'm sorry, let me jump up. Yeah, here we go. So it says, and if the king Sennacherib has slain any when he was come and fled from Judea, right? So it says, and fled from Judea. So this was the event that happened right here in the time of Isaiah 37, right? When the Syrians were threatening Judea, right? In Jerusalem, they basically got smote, right? And basically got sent packing. Okay, Most High killed many of they other people. This king had came back in a fit of rage and began to slay many of the 10 tribes that were in his land. All right, they were Israelites, so they knew that they had Israelites in their land. That's why the king was so angry, man. He was like, if I can't kill the ones down there, I'm gonna kill the ones up here. All right, remember, because they were forsaken of the Lord at that time. Okay, so so Tobit was, he was set up, he was in a good place, all right. The Most High had mercy on Tobit, okay. So now let's read chapter 2, and we're going to get verse 1. So now it says, now when I was come home again, and my wife Anna was restored unto me with my son Tobias, in the feast of Pentecost, which is the holy feast of 7 weeks, there was a good dinner prepared me, in the which I sat down to eat. Right. So now this is in this is going into the feast of weeks, right? The holy feast of 7 weeks, all right, which is the Pentecost. So he had a good dinner that was prepared for him. All right. So he was keeping Pentecost where? All the way in the land of Assyria. Look at that. He was all the way in the land of Assyria keeping the holy feast of Pentecost. So when brothers sit there and say, you know what I mean, you can't keep the feast outside of Jerusalem, they're dead wrong. Here is history right here that shows you that yes, it can be kept. And Tobit still observed to keep the feast. All right. So now, was he around? Was he around a bunch of Israelites? You know what I mean? Yeah, in this community. But remember, many of his brethren, right, had fell off. They weren't keeping the laws of the Most High. All right, they were keeping the laws in which Jeroboam had set up. Okay, so they weren't mindful of the feast. All right, but there most likely was a remnant or a scattered few, man, that were. All right, very mindful of the feast. Okay, so now he says, and when I saw, verse 2, and when I saw abundance of meat, I said to my son, go and bring what poor man soever thou shalt find out of our brethren. Did he say go to the heathen? I'm tripping. He didn't say go to the heathen, right? He said go to our brethren, all right, who are mindful of the Lord. And lo, I tarry for thee, right? So he said, I'll wait for you. All right. So he told his son, gave him a specific order. He's like, go out there and find those of our brethren, you know what I mean, who are mindful of the Lord so we can keep this feast. All right. We have plenty of food. So this is what he wanted to do. So he said, we'll wait. All right. I'll wait for you to come back. All right. So that's what he was doing, man. So that's also what we do. So sometimes you gotta understand, like when you have like certain camps, right? You know, I can understand why they don't have any and everybody, you know what I mean, at their feast. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people are mindful of the Lord. All right. A lot of people just come to fill their stomach and that's it. Fill their stomach, drink the liquor, and that's it. But it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be beyond that, man. It's to come and worship the Father. All right. The food and stuff is there. Yeah, that's just to prolong the good time that you're having. Okay. But let's read on. He says, but he came again and said, I'm in verse 3. But he came again and said, Father, one of our nation is strangled and is cast out in the marketplace. Right. So one of his brethren, man, you know what I'm saying, an Israelite was strangled. Okay. And they was just left in the marketplace, just there dead. All right. Just like you see many of the figures, right? You know what I'm saying, of our people, right? They get shot down or whatever, and they just left out in the streets. Carcass is just there, right? So then he says, then before I had tasted of any flesh. Oh, and by the way, that shows you he didn't find any. He didn't find anybody. His son didn't find anyone mindful of the Lord, mindful enough of the Lord. Okay. So he just came back. He just came back and said, Father, it's one of our nation who's strangled in the marketplace. All right. So he says, before I had tasted of any meat, I started up and took him up into a room until the going down of the sun. Then I washed, then I returned and washed myself and ate my meat in heaviness. All right. So hold on. So yeah, so let me read it again. It said, then I returned and washed myself and ate my meat in heaviness. So he went to go bury. He went to go. He was going to go bury the brother. All right. He says, remembering that prophecy of Amos, as he said, your feast shall be turned into mourning and all your mirth into lamentation. Right. So real quick, let's get that. Let's go to the book of Amos, chapter 8. Amos, chapter 8. That's where you get it from. Amos 8, and I'm going to read verse 10. And it says, and I will turn your feast into mourning and all your songs into lamentation, and I will bring up sackcloth upon your all loins and baldness upon every head, and I will make it as the morning of an only son, and the end thereof as a bitter day. All right. So this is what Tobit was citing. Okay. So our people will be keeping their feasting, man, in heaviness in the place of their captivity. All right. So then he says, verse 7, therefore I wept, and after the going down of the sun, I went and made a grave and buried him. All right. So he basically, after the feast was over, he went and buried the man. So that shows you that man was there for damn near a full, like almost 24 hours, just laying there. Cause he was able to he went up, like I said, he went upstairs, he washed himself, you know, and it's like he ate in heaviness. All right. And remember what the holy text said about them eating in heaviness. All right. And then like you said, man, said he cried, man. That shows you this brother really cared about his nation. All right. So, just like, you see many, many brothers out there right now, man. Shoot, you see a brother that's dead in the street, man. Shoot, it's sad, man. It's sad. It hurts me, man, to see my people digging through trash cans. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what hurts. All right.
It do.
So, you don't want to see your people being killed or slain or anything like that. You know what I mean? You want to wish the best for your people. But at the same time, it's like you say, man, we gotta understand, man, these are judgments of the Lord, man. They these judgments, man. So then it says, verse 8, but my neighbors mocked me and said, this man is not yet afraid to be put to death for this matter, who fled away. And yet, lo, he burieth the dead again. So they sitting there, they was mocking him. You know what I mean? For burying this man. It's like this nigga, he ain't scared yet. He ran away the first time. And yeah, he gonna continue to bury them. That's how they was mocking him, man. So then it says, so you see how like people will mock you for doing something right. They just gonna sit there and just look at you like you a damn fool. Like say, Jason, he sees two sisters fighting, you know what I mean, and the brother trying to come in and cold cock one of them, man. He stops the sisters and then try to stop the brother too from trying to come in and beat the sister down, right? Everybody gonna look at him like he crazy and he foolish, man, for stopping the fight. Like, oh man, why you
Yep.
do that? Woo, why you do that? Why you stop it? You know what I mean? You're gonna be looked at as evil for doing a good thing. You know what I mean? That's why the Most High said, man, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, right? So then he says, the same night, verse 9, the same night also I returned from the burial and slept by the wall of my courtyard, being polluted. So he was unclean. All right, he was unclean. The 7 days. All right, because he touched the dead body, and my face was uncovered. All right, so his face wasn't covered, and I knew not that there were sparrows in the wall, and my eyes being open, the sparrow muted warm dung into my eyes. So basically, the bird dropping had hit him in his eyes, man, and his face wasn't covered. So he opened his eyes, man. He didn't know that there were birds there, and it crapped in his eyes. All right, and it says the sparrow muted warm dung into my eyes, and whiteness came into my eyes. Right, so he couldn't see. All right, it was hard. It was hard for him to see because all of the bacteria that's in like bird feces and stuff, got into his eyes, man, and it blinded him. And it says, and I went to the physician, but they helped me not. So he said he went to the physician and they didn't know they couldn't help him, man. They couldn't help him at all. All right.
Right.
He says, but they helped me not. Moreover, and Nakaras did nourish me until I went into Eliamus, and my wife did take women's works to do. So even so, his wife stepped up because now he's basically disabled now. Him being blind, he's disabled. All right. So now his wife had to take up work. All right. It says, and when she had sent them home to the owners, they paid her wages and gave her also besides a kid. And when it was in my house and began to cry, I said unto her, from whence is this kid? Is it not stolen? Render it to the owners, for it is not lawful to eat anything that is stolen. All right. So Tobit, she shows you right there how Tobit was so strict in the law, man. He's like, yo, take it back, But it says that
Uh-huh.
that was her pay, that was her wage. They gave her a kid also. All right. He was like, nope, take it back. If it was stolen, take it back. All right, you stole it, give it back. All right. So it says, but she replied upon me, it was given for a gift more than the wages. Howbeit, I did not believe her, but bade her rendered it to the owners, and I was abashed at her. But she replied unto me, where are thine alms and thy righteous deeds? And she like, so where the hell are your alms and your righteous deeds? What people you was doing for them? Why ain't nobody doing for you? He said, behold, thou and all thy works are none. Damn. So you see Tobit, man, he going through it now. There's a righteous brother going through it, man. You know, It was like first had everything taken away from him, then had to get it restored. Most High restored him. Then next trying to invite people to the feast, and next now you hear about a brother that's dead in the marketplace. Then he getting mocked by his neighbors. Then you know what I'm saying? He goes and buries the brother. He's unclean for 7 days. So can't go in the house. So then he basically sits in the courtyard, looks up, and then the bird craps in his eyes. Now he's blind. Doctors can't do nothing for him. So his wife had to take up work, and he's sitting here thinking his wife just stole a damn, lamb, because of what they going through, and now he like take it back. She like, it was given to me. She like, well, where's all your righteous alms and deeds and all that stuff? So he's going through the whole nine, man. You know, he's going through the whole nine, man, and there's nothing he can do about it right now. You know, so. It's crazy, you know what I mean. But you see later on, you know what I'm saying, as you continue to read the book for yourself, and you'll see that a cure was actually found. You know what I'm saying, for his eyes, right? I believe it was like the rest of the fish. Uh, I think they took the heart of the fish, burned it for the insect, and then the gall of the fish. They made an ointment for the eyes of Tobit. You know what I mean? So it basically it cured, you know what I'm saying, the disease that was in his eyes. All right. So he was able to see. And the Lord basically blessed Tobit, man, for him going through what he was going through. He lived to be 158 years old. You know, his brother lived to be 158 years old, man. That's how righteous this man, was in the eyes of the Most High, you know. And that's how he was able to, this who the Most High was dealing with him. All right, this how the Most High was dealing with him. His brother was being tested. His brother was being tested heavily. All right, so let's see. Mm, let's see. So that's when we start going on Raphael. All right. So let me read the goodly word of Nephtali then. Let's see the advice that he gave his son. Let's read about the advice that he gave his son. All right. Let's go to chapter 4. Chapter 4. And we'll start at verse 1. So chapter 4, verse 1. So it says, in that day Tobit remembered the money which he had committed to Gabriel in Rages of Media, and said with himself, and said with himself, I have wished for death. Wherefore do I not call for my son Tobias, that I may signify to him of the monies before I die? And when he had called him, he said, my son, when I am dead, bury me, and despise not thy mother, but honor her all the days of thy life, and do that which shall please her and grieve her not. So this is him giving the advice to his son. All right, father son advice. Okay. So his son is at the age where he'll be able to where he understands. So now he can really speak to him, man, and really lay that game on him. He says, remember, my son, that she saw many dangers for thee when thou wast in her womb. And when she is dead, bury her by me in one grave. All right. So he's like, so now when she passes away, then I want you to bury her with me in one grave. That's it. All right. So yeah, many of the patriarchs do that. Okay. Abraham wanted Sarah, when Sarah his wife died, Abraham wanted to be buried next to his wife Sarah. Same thing with Jacob. All right. Jacob and his wives, they were all buried in the same sepulcher. Okay. So he says, my son, be mindful of the Lord our God all thy days, and not thy let not look, let not thy will be set to sin, or to transgress his commandments. Do uprightly all thy life long, and follow not the ways of unrighteousness. For if thou deal truly, thy doings shall prosperously succeed to thee, and to all them that live justly. Give alms of thy substance, and when thou givest alms, let not thy eye be envious. Neither turn thy face from any poor, and the face of God shall not be turned away from thee. If thou hast abundance, give alms accordingly. If thou have but a little, be not afraid to give according to that little. For thou layest up a good treasure for thyself against the day of necessity, because that alms do deliver from death, and suffer not to come into darkness. Right. So this is him going into the aspect of being charitable to his nation, charitable to people. All right. Okay, that's how the Most High basically teaches us according to His law, right? To be charitable, right? To your people, you know what I mean? To the nations that sojourn amongst you, be charitable, all right? So Tobit is laying the same foundation for his son to understand. Because that alms do deliver from death, and suffer not to come into darkness. For alms is a good gift unto all that give it in the sight of the Most High, right? So remember, just say for instance, you give to somebody, right? Somebody's in need that then you give to them, right? They be like, man, this is timely, man. I really needed this. The Most High, remember, He will recompense you. All right, you know what I mean. The Most High will look at that as righteousness. Okay, yeah. So then He says, beware of all whoredom. Now He's going to start getting into the aspect of women now. Beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe. Right? So remember, if there are Israelite women around, deal with your sister, deal with the Israelite woman. All right? Stay away from the heathen woman. Okay? That's what He's telling them. All right? So then He says, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe. For we are the children of the prophets, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred, and were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land. He says, now therefore, my son, love thy brethren, and despise not in thy heart thy brethren, the sons and the daughters of thy people. So right now he's telling the man about his kindred, all right, his brothers, his sisters. Okay. He says, don't hate them in your heart. All right. So remember, that's a part of the law. Remember, what does it say? Hate not thy brother in thy heart. Okay. But don't suffer sin upon them, right? Don't bear no grudge, nor avenge, you know what I'm saying? On the children of your people, right? But thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So he says, now therefore, my son, love thy brethren, and despise not in thy heart thy brethren. That's that the sons and daughters of thy people, in not taking a wife of them. Okay. He says, so basically, you know what I mean? Don't despise your brothers or your sisters by not taking a wife of your own people. All right, period. It says, for in pride is destruction and much trouble, and in lewdness is decay and great want. For lewdness is the mother of famine. Let not the wages of any man which hath wrought for thee tarry with thee, but give him out of hand. So remember, going back to giving proper wages to your workers, all right? So those who you hire. For if thou serve God, he will also repay thee. Be circumspect, my son, in all things thou doest, and be wise in all thy conversation. Do that to no man which thou hatest. Drink not wine to make thee drunken, neither let drunkenness go with thee in thy journey. So don't be no drunkard. All right. He says, give of thy bread to the hungry, and of thy garments to them that are naked. So give clothes, man. Just people need clothes, give them clothes. He says, and according to thine abundance, give alms, and let not thy eye be envious when thou givest alms. Pour out thy bread on the burial of the just, but give nothing to the wicked. So even Tobit shows you right here. He says, hey, he shows you who to give to, the righteous, right? He said, don't give a damn thing to the wicked, right? He says, ask counsel of all that are wise, and despise not any counsel that is profitable. He says, so remember, take good counsel, man. He says, bless the Lord thy God always, and desire of him that thy ways may be directed, and that all the paths and counsel may prosper. For every nation hath not counsel, but the Lord himself giveth all good things, and he humbleth whom he will, as he will. Now therefore, my son, remember my commandments, neither let them be put out of thy mind. And now I signify this to thee, that I committeth 10 talents to Gabriel the son of Gabarias at Rages in Media. And fear not, my son, that we are made poor, for thou hast much wealth, if thou fear God and depart from all sin, and do that which is pleasing in his sight. Damn. Woo! That's powerful, man. That's powerful. You know what I mean? So that's a part of the goodly word that Tobit gives. All right. So, this is also one of those, you know, if you don't know what to say to your son, you know what I mean? And, per se, then this is always a good chapter to go to explain to him, you know what I mean? Stay away from whoredom, give to those who are good, kind in heart, you know what I mean? Stay away from drunkenness, you know, and observe the words that I'm telling you. All right. So Tobit, he basically, man, he goes into the law in this too. All the precepts that's given here in the words in which he spake, they go back to the law. All right. So remember, there was no New Testament at this time, man. Remember, they had the Torah, you know, and they had the writings of the prophets. So Tobit is giving sound understanding here, man. So all praise to the Most High, man. Shoot, we just wanted to go into this part dealing with Tobit, and of course, remember next week is the Feast of Pentecost, which is June 15th. You know what I mean? Which is a Saturday night. All right. So if you work Sunday, make sure you take Sunday off. All right. If you work at night, then take Saturday night off. All right. So, with that, you know what I'm saying. We'll shut it down there. All right. Big brother Jay. I know you had to go pick up your seed, man.